Hey, it's Des back again. So I've got a few things to talk about today, but I'll start with the Bournemouth game. Obviously, great game, 3-0. Two goals from Ødegaard, and I know a magnificent goal from Saliba. So let's just start with this. We'll start the Bournemouth game. I've got a couple of things to talk about later on in the video, or in another video. I'm going to talk about the left centre mid role, the Xhaka role. Talk about our wingers as well. But yeah, so start with the Bournemouth 3-0, Bournemouth away 3-0. So in that game, the few things I want to talk about. First thing I want to talk about is Gabriel Jesus. What performance from him. It's a great performance. In that game, he showed great touch, composure. Ball reception was beautiful. His strength under pressure, back to goal. If you look at the first goal that Ødegaard scored, as soon as the ball came to him in the air, great touch to control the ball whilst under pressure with the defender behind him as well. Knocked the defender off, touched the ball, kept on swerving past players, and then you had Martinelli making a run in behind. Again, like I said from the last video, you've seen a great connection between both Gabriel Jesus and Martinelli. As soon as Gabriel, he didn't even have to look up. Martinelli was already making a run in behind already. I'm loving that connection between them. They know when to move. They know when the other one is about to make a run as well, and they just know how to get on point together. They're a great partnership, great movement. They're able to read each other's plays. So Gabriel Jesus, great performance the whole game. He's able to bully defenders, back up to them despite his height. He can win balls in the air. The way he brings the ball down from the air without losing his balance is just great, man. He's just a great signing. I can't believe we've actually moved on from the strikers we had before. We've improved so much. He's made such a huge difference. With just his movement behind, his movement to the left hand side, the way he drops deep to touch the ball, the way he circulates the ball, passes around everything. Jesus has been a great signing. He didn't score in this game, although he scored, but VAR took that one away. But even then, man, oh my gosh, his performances has been unbelievable from pre-season up until now. He's sharp. It looks like he wants to he wants to, what's it called, have a great, he wants to be, obviously he wants to be number 9 for Brazil, so he wants to be the first choice up there, so he wants to be picked, so he's performing really well. So I'm liking this from Gabriel Jesus. It's been a great signing, and he's someone that shows what having a great player can do to a team. Is completely transformed the attack. We look very dynamic up front. When you remember last season how we were with Aubameyang, for example, last season we had two situations. We had a situation with Aubameyang whereby he couldn't offer the pressing, although he made the runs in behind, he didn't offer the pressing. Then we had the Lacazette who was dropping deep and helping us with the build-up play, but he couldn't make the runs. He couldn't make the runs in behind. Then now we have Gabriel Jesus who does everything they did. He's got the movement behind of Aubameyang. He drops deep like Lacazette, but he's doing it all in one player. He's pressing, linking with other players, interchanging positions, getting in behind. He's just a magnificent player. He's great. The next player I'm going to talk about is Ødegaard. With Ødegaard, this game I'm going to give him his credit. The reason I'm going to give him his credit is because in the last two games, I did mention that he needs to be decisive. He has to be decisive in the final third, especially for a player who's on number 10. We need him to be productive. We need him to be able to, as soon as he gets the ball in the final third, make something happen. He has to take the shot when he sees it. And in this game, as soon as the ball landed to him, boom, he took the shot straight twice. He got the shot in. So I'm liking. I love this performance from him. Kind of reminded me of the way Ozil as well, great performance against Bournemouth. The same with Ødegaard as well, great performance against Bournemouth. So Bournemouth has been a good place for our number 10s to shine. But I love this performance from him. He showed great decisiveness in this game, which is something I want to see. But obviously this was Bournemouth, so I need to see it more from him in other games as well. Another thing that we saw from him as well was that he was making a lot more runs in behind. So usually what he does is he'll mainly just swap with Saka on the right side. So Saka will come inside and he will go to the right. He doesn't make as much runs in behind. But in this game, he did make a lot of runs in behind, and we can see the difference in it. When he runs in behind or makes late runs into the box, he makes himself available because he's dragging centre backs with him. He creates more space for others. He creates space for Saka, creates space for the wingers coming in on the other side. It just makes things more. It's just more difficult for the opposition when you have more players making runs in behind. So this was a great performance from him. So because of that, we have to give him his credit for that. I think Jesus and Ødegaard were our two best players in that game. They were everywhere doing everything great. So both credit to both of them. The other thing I want to mention as well is, because I said this in the last game, I said after the games against Crystal Palace and Leicester, I said one thing that we lacked in those two games was the ability to monopolize possession, control the game, and ensure that we're not giving these teams the confidence to start building up momentum whereby they can start getting into the game. So in this game as well, we saw I think this was around close at the almost at the end of the first half. We saw us monopolizing possession. We saw what we're doing. We started keeping the ball, circulating the ball around, passing around, ensuring that Bournemouth didn't have too much joy on the ball to have to try and build up momentum to do anything. We kept circulating the ball around, passing to. We didn't rush it, which is one thing that we did against Palace and Leicester. Is we kept on rushing. Although Palace did press us a bit more, so that forced us to have to rush it and be more direct. But what we did against Bournemouth is what we need to do going forward. Try to be a bit more, what's it called, to be more, like I said, less direct when we're on top of the game. Because when you're less direct and you're just circulating the ball, you can keep the ball, you get them tired, you get them chasing you, and they start making mistakes, creating openings, and then you can score. We did that perfectly, especially in the second half. The second half was a great showing of how you can monopolize position from us. If you look back at the second half again, we started that second half really well. When Bournemouth got into the game, yeah, they came out from the second half. Obviously, of course, they've conceded, so they're gonna try to, what's it called, get back into the game. But after that, we got back control of the game. We got the ball back. Started circling it. We didn't rush it. We didn't make too much mistakes. We started forcing it. We didn't force anything. So they started making the mistakes, and then we started creating many more chances. Later on, I'm gonna go into the tactical board and show some stuff about some of our movements that occurred because we were patient. Later in the game, later in the video, I'll show that. But it did show that when you monopolize possession and you're patient on the ball, and the opposition are starting to feel frustrated, they're going to start leaving openings. When they started leaving openings later in the game, we started creating some very good chances, started making runs in behind, started finding the spaces behind because they have to chase the game. They're going to start pushing higher up, they're going to start leaving space behind. And we ended the game with Nketiah, Gabriel Jesus, Smith Rowe. So we had players that were constantly making runs in behind, even Saka as well. So we had players that were constantly making runs. We had loads of runs in behind. We created around 3 chances. And Nketiah had a shot on target. Smith Rowe had a shot on target. Gabriel Jesus had a shot on target as well. So we created a lot of chances from there. But that second half performance is what we need to look at going forward. We have to maintain our control of the game like that, monopolizing possession. The other thing I was going to talk about again as well is the whole aspect of control. I think we need to also remember that just keeping the ball is not the only way to control a game. You can also control the game just by being organized and maintaining and always knowing where the ball is at all times, making sure that the opposition are constantly in front of you. You're not leaving any spaces behind you, and you're there and you're able to move them around with your organization, with your defensive block. So we defend in a 4-4-2. So how we did is when Bournemouth did have a little bit of success, we dropped back deep in our 4-4-2 shape. Like I said before, we have in our 4-4-2 shape usually Gabriel Jesus and Ødegaard are the main two. Then you have the two wingers either side with the left centre mid, which is Saka and Partey in there, and then the back four with the goalkeeper. So we maintained our control in that game by just being in shape and ensuring that we kept moving them about. We didn't create no openings for them. We didn't make any mistakes. We didn't leave any gaps. You can also control a game in that sort of way. So I feel like there's ways you can control. There's multiple ways to control the game, but we've shown in this game. We've shown great ways to control the game. We showed that we can control the game with the ball, and we showed we can control the game without the ball as well. So that's something that we need to continue to keep doing going forward. Hopefully, this is something that we can build on going forward. And then I feel like once we are able to establish control with the ball, without the ball, then we can start building our consistent. We can start dominating teams and ensuring that they're not creating many chances against us. So this was a great show, and the first half was excellent, but the second half was something that was good to watch because it was something that we've been lacking before, and it's something that we can build towards the future. Another performance I want to talk about is William Saliba. I mentioned on Twitter, I said he's shown great attitude for a player who's been loaned out quite a few times since he's been here. I think he joined when he was probably 18, 19, and he's been loaned out maybe 3 times, I think it was. He came back this season to prove a point, and he's performed in all 3 games perfectly. Even when he made a mistake, bounced back immediately. Came in this game, scored a great goal. He's showing great character, great attitude. He's not bitter about what happened, about how he's been sent alone. He's coming and he's willing to prove himself to show that he deserves a spot in the team, and he's going to keep on performing to show that he's not coming here to prove that he's not coming with any attitude about why was I loaned out or any of this. He doesn't seem bitter about anything. He just seems set to prove a point. And that's what I love about his performance so far. I hope that continues to show. And the other thing I mentioned is that we also need to remember he's a young player as well. So he's been great so far, but mistakes will happen. We have to be careful with him. He's still a young player. He's very young for a centre back. for a defender even. So then straight from this, go into the tactical board. One player I do want to talk about is Bukayo Saka in this position here, where at times he does feel isolated, because at times you can see him in situations here where you've got the fullback here and then the centre back comes over. Sometimes, okay, like, this is the defensive mid, but let's just say there's another player here who also comes over here. Then he ends up in situations like this where you've got players there and he has to go 1v1, but then there's another player here as well that he has to mark as well, that's marking him as well. So then he's got two players on him. Well, one thing we do need to see, as I mentioned in the other video, a lot more rotation between the Ødegaard here and Ben White. The same way we are seeing it from this side, where you've got more rotation between Martinelli, Xhaka at times going in, Martinelli coming in there, Zinchenko coming in there. We are seeing a lot more rotation on this side than we are seeing on this side. So we do need to see a lot more rotation here. But in this particular game, we saw a lot more of Ødegaard getting him behind a lot more, which is obviously when he gets in behind with the strike already here, he's dragging in more players in there. So then he's taking him away. Then Saka just has 1v1s, ends up in a 1v1 situation. For the goal, for the Ødegaard goal, we saw this where Saka was by himself in a 1-to-1 situation and Ben White came across and overlapped. Once Saka was able to get in a 1v1 situation, then that's a favorable matchup for him. He came inside, cut the ball back to Ben White. Ben White crossed it over to Ødegaard, who then scored from there. So this is the kind of situation we need to see more. Like I've mentioned before, we do need to get a new right back. Obviously at the moment Ben White is doing a good job, but if we get someone who's more attacking, then we can get someone who is able to do this a lot more, like we're seeing with Zinchenko on this side, who is able to overlap, underlap, and at times even get in the box by himself. We need to see more on this side with Ben White. We need to see more with the right back who can do this a lot more, because once you have a player doing this a lot more, you get more out of Saka. You'll be able to create more situations for him. If you get a 10 that's also more dynamic as well, he can also take these players away for Saka. So we just need to see a lot more of this. But obviously Saka's had a slow start this season, but I feel like this plays a part in it. But we saw in this game what's possible when you've got a fullback that's consistently overlapping and creating space for him. And we saw what happens with when the 10 is also getting behind. It gives him more space, it gives him more favourable situations to play in. The other thing I do want to mention is, I said earlier in the video about how in this game we saw a lot more movement behind, because we controlled the game and we frustrated them and made them start to push up. Let me talk about some scenarios that happened. We saw a scenario whereby later in the game, as they started to get a bit more frustrated. Let me put that there. As they started to get more, they started to push up. Then gaps started to open up in these areas, and in these areas we started to see more movement. When we brought in Nketiah, we had Gabriel Jesus, we had Smith Rowe playing the 10 at that time. We saw a lot of runs in behind like this, runs in behind from here. We saw a lot more runs in behind from here, runs in behind. So let's just one scenario that happens was when Gabriel Jesus made a quick run in behind, and Ødegaard put him in through like that. And then he scored, but VAR took that off. We had another situation where Smith Rowe burst into the box from here and got a ball in behind from Xhaka, gave him the ball and he hit the ball, but obviously the keeper saved it. The same situation we saw as well with Nketiah running in behind. But that's what happens when you're monopolizing possession, you're controlling the game, and the opposition are forced to push up. They're going to create gaps in these areas. That's when you can start exploiting them with movement. So we saw great movement behind. Obviously, we didn't score for them. We didn't score for them in the second half. But going forward, these are the kind of situations you need to create to score more goals. And I'm happy we did create a lot of them situations, because in other games they will lead to goals, even though they didn't lead to goals in this game. Another thing I wanted to mention was needing a right-footed centre mid in there. Like I've said before, I will do another video for the Xhaka role, the role that he's playing there, just to elaborate a bit more and to see other targets that we can sign in the transfer market. But what we saw at times in this game, we had situations whereby Xhaka and Zinchenko, obviously both being left-footed, they ended up in situations where they had to come inside this way because they were being pressed and being mocked. So they had to always come on the left foot and then pass the ball this way. If we had a right-footed, if they were right-footed and we had a right-footed centre mid, he'll be able to cut in this. When he does cut in because he's being pressured or being pressed, he'll end up coming in on his right foot, and then he can make a cross into the box. That way you can have runs on the back post. You can have Saka making a run on the back post. You can have the 10 making a run on the back post. You can have Gabriel Jesus pulling the centre backs out of the way and creating space in the back post for these kind of crosses into the box. Someone like, for example, Tielemans, he's really good at making these kind of crosses into the back post. So that's something that we'll be able to do with a right-footed centre mid. He can be able to cross this ball into the box there for players moving in on the back post. And where whereby you have either Gabriel Jesus taking centre backs out of the way, or you have Ødegaard taking centre backs out of the way. Then you create someone in the back post. You can get the ball that way, and you can create chances like that. So I feel like even I'll go into more details about the Saka role and why we need a new centre mid. But that's the situation that can be created and that can happen with a right-footed centre mid. Alright, so that concludes that video. I'm gonna probably release a couple more videos after this to talk about the left centre mid position where Xhaka is playing at the moment, just to talk about the role, what is required of that position, and then players in the transfer window that we can look at who offer something similar or offer something better. And then I'm going to talk about the wing positions as well, what's required for that position, and players in the transfer window that we can look at who can offer similar, just so we can be able to rotate Martinelli and Saka and give them more options, more competition. But see you in the next video then.